Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Kaminsky. I work in the Settlement and Integration Policy Branch at IRCC. Oh, good, they have the French version up there. So I'm here to talk about the Atlantic Immigration Pilot. We call it the AIP. We love acronyms in the government. It's an innovative new immigration program that seeks to attract and retain immigrants in Atlantic Canada. So what I'm planning to do is give you an overview of the unique aspects of the policy and program design, and as well as talk about the partnership model between IRCC, the Atlantic provinces, employers, and settlement agencies, as well, and then go over the settlement components of the pilot and how the employers play a role in the long-term integration of the employees and their family members. So when Roberto asked me to present, I thought this would be a really great opportunity to talk to the LIPs. Because a welcoming community for newcomers is key to long-term retention in a community, and that's going to be a key part of the success of the AIP. You also have firsthand knowledge of the benefits and the challenges that come with multi-stakeholder partnerships, and we also have common ground because you know what it's like to engage with non-traditional partners, including employers, and that's what we're doing with the AIP. So just a bit of background. In Atlantic Canada, there's a demographic shift taking place that's quite stark. There's an aging population. They have lower immigrant retention than other regions in Canada, and there's some persistent labor market shortages. So what happened was the Government of Canada and the provinces in the Atlantic Canada signed on to an Atlantic growth strategy, and the aim is to create sustained prosperity in the Atlantic region. And the AIP is just one of the 5 pillars. So there's an immigration pillar, which is what the AIP is under, and then there's innovation, clean growth, trade, and investment, as well as infrastructure. So what sets the AIP apart from other immigration programs? There's 3 streams: high-skilled, intermediate-skilled, and international students. International students are specifically students that are studying in universities in Atlantic Canada to try to get them to stay after they graduate. So the 3 things that set it apart: it's fast. Employers say they need people and they need them quickly, so there's priority processing. It's a partnership, as I said, between all of those different stakeholders. And there's more flexible criteria than in most other IRCC immigration programs. So there's lower language, education, and work experience requirements. And that's really to make it align with the labor market needs of Atlantic employers. So the caveat there is that a lot of the employers that are using the AIP have never actually used an immigration program to attract international talent. So there's a lot of education that has to go along with that to get them to understand the system and to participate. So an important thing to think about is that the reason why there's buy-in for the AIP is that all of the stakeholders in Atlantic Canada understand the demographic reality, and so they're all unified behind a common goal. They need more people living and working there. So with this collectively recognized need encourages and even forces people to work together. So some employers are altruistic and they want to hire immigrants because of like a social responsibility goal, but most employers recognize that they need international talent to survive and to grow. So because the demographic challenges are more apparent in Atlantic Canada than some other places, the employers are out front in the recruitment and retention of international labor. But this demographic reality is gradually coming to most other parts of the country. So employers will increasingly need to buy into the use of newcomer labor, and the challenge is for governments, service providers, and other stakeholders to support employers in that transition. The AIP, it's a pilot for 3 years. It just launched in March, and it's relatively small. Maximum 2,000 principal applicants and their family members will be brought in every year, and that's across the Atlantic region, all 4 provinces. Just to give you a sense of who's using it, currently the AIP breaks down by sector, like just the employers who have gotten on board so far. Over 40% are in accommodation and food services, 17% in transportation and warehousing, that's usually truck drivers, 10% in manufacturing, and 4% in healthcare and professional or scientific and tech. Okay, this slide just shows you the AIP immigration process. I'm not going to go through it, don't worry, but my point here is that no one accused the AIP of being simple and straightforward. It is rather complex, and I just want to give you the broad strokes of how it works, is that employers who want to participate apply to the province to become designated employers so that they can then begin hiring under the AIP. Then, once they're designated, they recruit someone. So either they're going abroad and recruiting people internationally, or if there's people that are on a temporary basis living in Atlantic Canada, they can recruit them from within Canada to stay. So once the candidate is selected, they then are referred to a settlement service provider, either one of our pre-arrival SPOs overseas or a domestic SPO in the Atlantic region, and they get a needs assessment and a personalized settlement plan for them and each one of their adult family members. Then the province looks over their whole application, including their needs assessment, including their settlement plan, and then endorses that candidate. Then they come to our department and apply for permanent residence. And then they come to Canada if they're currently living abroad. So the aim of the AIP is long-term retention. So settlement supports are built into every part of the program. And the goal is to help these immigrants and their families to feel integrated and supported in their new communities so that they stay. I want to highlight two important touch points in that crazy long process. One is at the designation stage, employers are required to get in contact with a local SPO, a settlement SPO in their community. Oh, damn. Okay, so at that point, that's when they learn about the settlement process and about what services are available for their candidates. And that's when they might learn about things like long wait lists for language training in their community or other challenges that they might face. So when they apply to the province, they actually have to indicate that they've made contact with a local SPO and that they commit to creating a welcoming workplace. Then, once that candidate has been selected, they go to the SPO and get their needs assessment and their settlement plans. And then the employer has to sign off that they are committed to supporting the activities listed in that settlement plan. So some interesting on-the-ground experience from our provincial counterparts, because they're the ones having the face-to-face contact with employers. What they're hearing is that employers are quite reluctant initially to reach out to SPOs. For some of them, they don't even know that SPOs exist. And they're worried, they think, am I signing on to sponsor someone? I thought I was just hiring someone. So there's a lot of education that's happening with employers about what settlement looks like. And then there's also a big difference in capacity between some of the large and small employers and some of the employers that are in urban areas versus rural. So just as an example, if an employee, that principal candidate has a CLB level 4, so a fairly low level of English, the employer is actually signing on when they endorse them to support up to 300 hours of language training for that applicant in the first year. So, if you're a large agency or a large employer and you work in Halifax, that could just mean, letting someone go for a couple hours to take language training at a SPO down the street, a free link class, let's say. But if you're in a rural area and you're maybe like a seafood processing plant and there's no SPOs in your community, that could mean that you're actually signing on to hire a language instructor to come to your community and teach your employees. So, what makes the AIP innovative? One, employers are being engaged in immigrant settlement in a new way. Two, that mandatory needs assessment that's happening for everyone, we're hoping that that's going to increase people's understanding of what is available to them in the settlement sector, and also maybe lead to an increased uptake in settlement services. Right now, about 40% of permanent residents use settlement services funded by IRCC. And also, I think what the pilot's going to do is it's going to increase our knowledge of the relationship between settlement service usage and long-term integration and retention. I'll skip over this. This is just how we're trying to make it better. So these are some of the questions that I have for you. I think we'll probably get to that later on, but I think what we're going to be evaluating the results of the pilot and hopefully bringing our learning there to other immigration programs. Anyway, you can take a look at the questions, but I just want to thank you all for having me and for giving me the chance to present.